Hello everyone. Today is a very special day for all of us. We are at Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology for a wonderful conference called the Divine Compassion and the Ministry of Women, held by St. Catherine's Vision. Today here with us is a very special guest, His Eminence Kallistos Ware of Dioclea. All the way from England, His Eminence traveled to be part of our conference to give us his blessings. The founder and coordinator of St. Catherine's Vision, Dr. Kyriaki Fitzgerald, is also with us, and I would like to ask Dr. Fitzgerald to introduce St. Catherine's Vision.
Arkady, thank you. Your Eminence, good morning. Good morning, everyone. Thank you again for interviewing us. This conference is co-sponsored by Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology, by the Greek Orthodox Metropolis of Boston, as well as St. Catherine's Vision. We are a group, an organization endorsed by the Canonical Assembly of Orthodox Bishops of the United States, comprised mostly of women graduates of Orthodox theological schools and other lay servant leaders, a kind of prayer-based think tank, striving to reach out, listen, and work collaboratively within the life of the Church with those around us on issues pertaining to the life of the Church today. So thank you for interviewing us.
Your Eminence, welcome. Thank you for joining us here today. We enjoyed yesterday, felt the blessings and the eleos of God. Please tell us, Your Eminence, few challenges you have faced as an Orthodox theologian, and how have you overcome those challenges?
Most of my life, my adult working life, was spent teaching theology in the University of Oxford for 35 years. Now, Oxford, though in the Middle Ages it was a religious foundation, today is essentially a secular university. So a first challenge that confronted me teaching theology in a secular university was, what is the relevance of theology to the modern world? Does theology have a place in a secular university? Is it a legitimate subject? There are plenty of people who would say, no, this should not be taught in a modern university. So we in the theology faculty at Oxford had to show, first of all, that we were relevant, that we had an important contribution to make to the life of the university as a whole. We had to justify the teaching of theology. But then my position was different from that of my colleagues, in that there were plenty of Anglicans in our theology faculty, and a number of Roman Catholics and a number of Protestants, but I was the only Orthodox Christian teaching in the faculty. So not only to the university as a whole, but to my colleagues, I had to show the relevance and meaning of the Orthodox Church. Does it have a positive contribution to make in the modern world, and above all in the West? The number of Orthodox in Britain is much smaller than here in the States, so we tend to be marginalized. The impression that most people have, indeed not just non-Christians but our Christian colleagues, is that Orthodoxy lives in the past, and we indeed often say we are the Church of Holy Tradition. And they will often say, well, you live in the past, but what have you to say to the 21st century? You live in a pre-Enlightenment era, in the spirit of the Middle Ages, and that's not relevant. So my task was to try and show that we Orthodox have a message to the West. We do not merely say to our Western brothers and sisters, we are your past. We have also to say, we are your future.
Wonderful. How does the Orthodox Church share the light of Christ in the postmodern world?
The special gift of Orthodoxy is the gift of prayer. We cannot say in the modern world that we are particularly well organized. We have our problems. But we come before other Christians, above all, as a communion and tradition of living prayer. And that takes two basic forms. We have the divine liturgy, and we have a rich tradition of inner mystical prayer centered particularly upon the Jesus prayer and expressed in works such as the Philokalia. So that is the side of Orthodoxy which I believe has a special contribution to make in the Western world. We aren't skilled in things like sociology or medical ethics in the way that Western Christians are, though we should be interested in those subjects and prepared to learn from our Western Christian colleagues. But I do believe we Orthodox, in our tradition of liturgical and of inner prayer, have a vital contribution to make to the world at large, as well as to the Christian community.
Thank you, Your Eminence. One more question. The result of the postmodern lifestyle is the troubled family. What do you think is the Orthodox Church's contribution to the family life? What's the connection between the family and the Church?
We need to do two things. First, to uphold the traditional scriptural and Christian understanding of the family, but secondly, to show a practical and living compassion. So we Orthodox must firmly say marriage signifies a union of one man to one woman, a union that is for life, indeed for eternity, because at the end of the Orthodox marriage service we say clearly, receive their marriage crowns into your kingdom. But at the same time, we recognize that we humans are fallible, that we make mistakes, and so when marriage breaks down in the Orthodox Church, we do allow divorce, and we do allow remarriage. We allow people to have a second chance. We feel we must show towards them the compassion that Christ showed in the Gospels. He didn't just say, well, you've made a mess of your life, go away. He healed and supported and strengthened people. And we must do the same. Marriage is very much under pressure in our modern society, and we must show, therefore, the utmost understanding and generosity when things break down. And therefore, I support the Orthodox tradition of allowing, in certain circumstances, a divorce and remarriage. I think this is right. I'm interested that the new Pope Francis has even suggested that perhaps the Roman Catholics have something to learn from the Orthodox here. That, however, brings me to another question. We hear so much about same-sex marriage. The definition of marriage I gave just now, one man and one woman, means that we cannot, as Orthodox, accept the idea of same-sex marriage. But we recognize that there are people of homosexual orientation. And though we cannot say that a union between two men and two women is the same as Christian marriage, we should treat such people with pastoral understanding and try to help them.
Thank you very much, Your Eminence. Because today we're talking about divine compassion and the role of the women. What is the role of the women in the Orthodox Church, in a family, in the church, in a postmodern society?
In the past, the role of woman was chiefly within the family, as wife and as mother. And that role continues undiminished, though within the modern family there is much more equality than there used to be, much more sharing of tasks, much more sharing in the upbringing of children. But we live in a society where women also play a part in public life in a way that they did not do in earlier ages. And we have women prime ministers, leaders of state, and women who are in prominent positions of teaching and administration. And our church life should reflect this. Therefore, there is a full place for women to serve on parish councils, in the administration of parishes, in the teaching work of the church. Where we need to look more closely is, should we revive the order of women deacons, deaconesses that existed in the early church, that was never abolished? Should that be revived? And if so, would the women deacons, the deaconesses, have functions that they didn't have in the early church? For example, they helped at the baptism of adult women catechumens, but they didn't preach. But perhaps today a woman could be blessed to preach at liturgical services, and deaconesses could play their part there. We have, of course, the further difficult question of the ordination of women to the priesthood. The overwhelming majority of Orthodox today say that is impossible. It could not even be considered. I have heard Orthodox church leaders say there is nothing to be discussed, which actually is another way of saying we don't know what to say. But I myself feel that for the Orthodox this should be treated as an open question. That does not mean I am in favor of the ordination of women to the priesthood. I don't find the arguments in favor convincing, but I am not very convinced by the arguments against either. And it is my belief that there is a mystery here that we have not fully explored. We have not fully explored as Orthodox what is the ministry of women in the church, and why can they not be ordained to the ministerial priesthood. It would perhaps be better for us Orthodox not to say it is impossible, but to say, let us reflect further on this. We have not gone deeply enough into it, and there is much more to be said than so far has been said. This, I think, would be a more humble and realistic attitude for us Orthodox to take. Let us wait on the Holy Spirit. Let us not say he has nothing to do because everything is already settled.
Thank you very much, Your Eminence. This was a wonderful lesson for me, and I hope it's a blessing for the audience. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I hope it will prove useful and helpful.